Former US President and in the running for a second term, Donald Trump is under sustained attack. Indictment after indictment is levelled at him, so that the prospect of a presidential candidate behind bars seems less and less unlikely as events unfold. It's all too fascinating for words. And joining me now from Fulton County, Georgia, to help me understand the twists and turns is Eric Ham, congressional staffer and best-selling author. Good evening, Eric.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know, lovely. Thank you for being there. Eric, first of all, it seems to be non-partisan. It's an ignoble time in US politics, no? Allegations back and forth, not a good look for anyone.
No, that's absolutely right. In fact, we have seen perhaps over the last 2 decades, national politics in Washington have become increasingly polarized. In fact, many of the issues that have been seen as perhaps the third or the final rail in politics, typically areas where you don't see polarization, have become such now. And some of those issues include foreign policy. For example, the ongoing war in Ukraine. We have seen Democrats and Republicans fight over this issue, but it's not just Democrats and Republicans, it's Republican versus Republican. Now the lines are being drawn whether or not you support Vladimir Putin or you support Volodymyr Zelensky. And so that just gives you an indication of just how polarized and how toxic our politics in the United States have become.
A lot of people here in the UK talk about the emergence of a uniparty, the distinctions, the previously understood distinctions between our two principal parties, for example, Conservative and Labour, have blurred to the point where you can't tell one from another. You know, is something similar happening in America where it's not about being Republican or Democrat anymore, that the divisions are running across different lines?
No, I think there's still very much that demarcation between Democrat and Republican. But also, I think what you're seeing even within the two parties, for example, in the Democratic Party, you have what are known as progressives. And you have some progressives who continue to fight tooth and nail against the agenda of the current president, Joe Biden. But also in that you have some Democrats who are seen as centrist or conservative Democrats. That would be people like Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Now, that's a state where Donald Trump received the largest percentage of his vote than any other state. And so you have a Democrat who is and identifies as that in name, but many of his policies and many of his actions somehow suggest that he is perhaps more sympathetic to that of Republicans. On the Republican side, what you've seen is since Donald Trump has taken control of the party, there have been a number of Republicans who have either left the party altogether or have pretty much gone in hiding. And so now what you're seeing is you're seeing this MAGA Republican that is now pretty much the standard bearer. And it's also a determination of who actually gets elected, because oftentimes in both respective parties, what you're seeing play out is the primary system. So one of the major concerns that we're seeing is people on either side who do not want to get primary. And so much of that is determined by your leftist or your right politics in terms of if you're able to actually survive.
What about what seems from this side of the Atlantic a tit for tat going on? You know, every time I saw a piece on Fox News, every time there was news about questionable behaviour by Hunter Biden or the Biden family, it was almost immediately followed by an indictment for Trump. You know, is it desperate distraction by a beleaguered incumbent? Anytime he or they are accused of something, the only defence they can come up with is just to indict Trump for something else.
Well, I think we see that play out on both sides of the aisle where, Washington has become a place where it's not necessarily about getting anything done more so than it is about stopping the other side from actually getting something done. And so I think what you're seeing here now play out particularly is there is a group of Republicans, particularly who are in control of the House of Representatives, who have moved to this brand of politics where it's about attacking the Bidens and also placing this moniker on the Bidens in a way, I think, to muddy the waters or somehow show or highlight or underscore that the Biden family is very similar to many of the same attacks that we saw on the Trump family over those 4 years that President Trump was in office. I think the difference, however, is unlike the Trumps, Joe Biden does not have Hunter Biden, who many in America recognize as perhaps a wayward or black sheep of the family. He has not, and nor does he serve in this administration.
No. Now, I've also got a guest in the studio with me, Eric, Laura Dodworth. We're fascinated as a nation, as individuals, by what happens in Washington, what happens with American politics. What do you make of this, the level to which the debate seems to have dropped between Democrat and Republican or whatever?
It's terrible. A couple of things really strike me. I mean, first of all, Congress subpoenaed Meta, that's Facebook, to provide files because the FBI had said that they'd only met Facebook once about the Hunter Biden laptop story and that they hadn't known that it was true. And this was patently untrue. There are reams of communications. I mean, this is lying at the highest level to suppress a story that would have damaged Biden in the election. That's the first thing. The second thing is, what are they doing? Because isn't it obvious that all these indictments, what they do is they end up portraying Trump as the most fearsome candidate that the Democrats are up against. And his fundraising has swelled. His popularity has soared. And I think, well, if I can work out that would happen, what are they playing at?
That's a good question, Eric. What are they playing at? As Laura says, it just does seem to be the Democrats playing into Republican hands in making Trump, more and more someone they will feel motivated to vote for, to defend, to stand up with.
I think we have to be careful in terms of how we engage in this discussion, particularly as if what is happening to Donald Trump is actually coming from Democrats. And it's not. It's coming from the state itself. Now, people will say, well, Joe Biden is in control of that state. But in the United States, what we have seen, particularly with the White House and the Justice Department, the White House for decades have tried to maintain a wall of independence between the White House and the Justice Department, so it doesn't appear as though there is a thumb being placed on the scale. And so, for example, in the case of Hunter Biden, what people may not be aware of is the U.S. attorney who has been investigating and who actually created this deal that is now blown up with Hunter Biden. That was actually a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who Joe Biden kept on as the U.S. attorney to continue to engage in that case. And now we see that he has been made a full special counsel, which gives him greater independence to pursue the matter. But what we have, but we have to be clear that at least what we're seeing here is this administration has tried to maintain some distance between the personal of Joe Biden and, of course, the law enforcement, which certainly has every right to go after Hunter Biden for both his tax dealing and his criminal activities as it relates to this gun charge.
Eric, trust me, I've got about another 20 questions that I wanted to ask you. I have simply been beaten by time, but author and political pundit, thank you so much for your insights this evening. We'll speak again, I hope.